Welcome back to Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis, Big 4's on this show, Bill. Do people know what that means?
I think they know what a big four is. I feel like big three has become part of the sports vernacular over the years, right? Yeah. It's a LeBron and Miami Heat. But so I think people know what we mean when we say big four as it pertains to football.
So what we're doing is we are drafting the best Big 4's in Northern college football. We're going to draft the top 10 out of our 26 Northern teams. And our Big 4 definition is we're talking offensive skill. So you have to include a quarterback, right? Would there be a world where it's like, maybe your quarterback's not good, but you love your two receivers, a tight end and a running back? We kind of didn't allow that, did we?
No, quarterback is a must. Everything else is a little more malleable, I think. Like you could have multiple running backs, receivers, tight ends, but you have to have the quarterback included. Yes.
Yeah. So it's your quarterback and your best three skill guys. There are many teams, Bill, who are going to win this year in the North with offensive line play, with great defense. And there might be some teams that we believe will be very good that might not make our top 10 in the Big 4's. There also are some teams that maybe have huge questions on the offensive line and don't really play defense that can run four dudes out there. So there might be some surprise teams in our top 10, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think there will be some surprises. I know I surprised myself as I was going through making the list of candidates of who actually made the cut.
So there also is, when you can't pick a team more than once, but when you pick a team, you pick the four guys. There could even be a world where I think one team's Big 4 is these four guys, but you think it's actually these four guys, but we can't, when a team is off the board, it's off the board. So we are going to draft. We sent ideas to our producer, Mike, beforehand. We don't exactly know how this is going to go, but there are some obvious teams. But again, I think it'll get a little less obvious fairly quickly. And like in the top 5, even, I think there might be some people watching this who are like, what? It's not just going to be at pick 8.
No, I think it can get potentially interesting maybe at pick 3. I think it can start to get interesting. Yeah.
So this is driven by two things. Most recently, we were discussing the Iowa State Cyclones, and we were saying, you know what? You might put their Big 4 up against almost anybody in the North. So we said, well, let's see. Let's see how that works out. And I referenced this before when the Cleveland Browns, and I was doing NFL stuff then, acquired Odell Beckham Jr., and they had a news conference, I think with Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, and Nick Chubb. And I was like, watch out, Hall of Fame. This is against the Cleveland Browns Big 4. And then I forgot about, coaching, offensive. Actually, the offensive line's pretty good. Anyway, didn't work out as I expected. So it could be a curse. You could have a great Big 4 and be terrible as a team. That's definitely possible, is it not?
That's what I think differentiates football from basketball. It's like you get a Big 3 in basketball, you're pretty good. There's only 2 other guys on the court, right? Big 4 in football, you need 7 more to make it work.
We got our Big 4 and our iffy 18, and that's our starting lineups on both sides of the ball. So we will start. Would it offend you if I go first?
Not at all. Please do.
Okay. I'm going to do that because I think the number 1 pick is pretty obvious. I don't know that anybody could really dispute it, and I will take the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I will take the Buckeyes with a Big 4 of Will Howard at quarterback, Quinshon Judkins at running back, and then 2 receivers, Emeka Egbuka and true freshman Jeremiah Smith. So if you wanted to, you could throw receiver Carnell Tate in here, maybe instead of Smith. If you don't want to go with a true freshman, you certainly could go with running back Travion Henderson instead of Quinshon Judkins. And I don't know, if you really had a burr in your saddle, you could drop Devin Brown in here instead of Will Howard as the quarterback. The only sure thing is Emeka Egbuka, who was hurt last year, but in 2022 was a 1,000-yard receiver. This is number 1, is it not?
This is number 1, and this configuration is how I would have had it as well. I as I was making my list, I gave some thought to both running backs and Emeka Egbuka. So Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, and Emeka Egbuka, because I think people perhaps have forgotten what Emeka Egbuka was as a sophomore. The fact that he was the best high school receiver in his class, just because he was hurt last year and was never really himself. And Marvin Harrison Jr. got a ton of attention. And also the quarterback play at Ohio State wasn't particularly good last year. So like Emeka Egbuka, I think fell very much out of sight, out of mind. But he is a good receiver and a versatile receiver. And I think as long as he stays healthy, someone who's going to be utilized in Ohio State's offense in a lot of different ways. And we all love Jeremiah Smith, but part of me still wants to not put too much on the kid. He's only a freshman, but he's awesome. So I think this is right to have this big four rather than the two backs, but I think the two backs and a receiver would be reasonable as well.
So you're dealing with two receivers here. Emeka Egbuka was the number one receiver in his recruiting class, and he's now in his fourth year of college football. And Jeremiah Smith was the number one receiver in his recruiting class, and he is a true freshman. Then Quinshon Judkins, obviously the transfer for Ole Miss to give Ohio State that 1-2 running back punch. The question here is quarterback. And if you want to make a case for another team, the case would be, well, Will Howard's not the best quarterback in the North, and I would rather go with Shadur Sanders from Colorado or Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. And I want to start with quarterback there. And I think those guys have some pretty good skill guys around him. If there is a case, that's the case.
Yeah.
But I think the Ohio State skill is good enough to elevate them, even if they're quarterback. I mean, clearly Will Howard's not the best quarterback in the North, at least not right now.
No, not right now. But I think, I don't doesn't part of you think that he could be because of what's around him, right? Like, I don't think it's off the table, right? So like that
we've done a lot of quarterback stuff, which is why this is different, right?
Yeah.
Which is,
yeah. And I think the skill is somewhat significantly better at Ohio State than it is basically everywhere else in the North.
This is what they do. This is what defines them. And again, we're not automatically saying that means Ohio State's going to win the national championship, because if we were ranking, and maybe we will later, if we were ranking offensive lines in the North,
not first.
Ohio State is
they're not first. I knew that.
We'd have to dive in. They're not first. Are they in the top 10? I mean, they have a lot of guys back. Maybe, but they're not clamoring to be number one. But also, their defense is going to be very good. It's like Ohio State's going to be good. Mm-hmm. So, and it's a reminder. But their skill, this actually, would you take their skill last year or this year? Because last year you would have Marvin Harrison Jr. in this conversation. So would you rather have 2023? Would you take Kyle McCord at quarterback, Travion Henderson at running back, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka? Would you take that over this group?
That's tough. I think I might take this group.
Really?
I think I'm taking yeah.
I mean, I don't. Marvin Harrison Jr. might be like enough of a difference maker. That's like, I don't like. The quarterback's maybe close enough, and now we're talking about the best receiver in college football versus a true freshman. You might take that. But so 2022, do you take Jackson Smith and Jig, right? And CJ, as good? Ohio State's number one. This is not the best collection of skill that Ohio State's had in the past 5 years. There would have been a year where in 2021, you're putting out CJ Stroud, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave.
Going into 2022, going into 2022 with CJ Stroud's second year, Jackson Smith and Jigba before we knew that he was going to be hurt for the entire season, and then you probably pick Marvin as your second receiver, and then Travion Henderson coming off of a freshman season where he ran for 1,300 yards. Yeah, you would feel, I think, much better about this. This is really good, but that's better at this stage of the game.
Yeah. So, it's not a guaranteed. The point is, this is what Ohio State has been. This is not a new level of Ohio State skill, and they haven't won the national championship in this era with this type of skill. They have not won a national championship since they became a passing team with the arrival of Ryan Day as the offensive coordinator in 2017. And so 2017, that idea is sort of the whole point. They're always this good, and it hasn't been enough. So nothing is guaranteed, even this year when they're number one in the Big Fours.
Yeah. But they've sort of maintained like this, right? This pick a big four. The big four is really good. They've never been like as good on the other side of the ball, and they are now perhaps better on the other side of the ball, which is a very different dynamic for Ryan Day.
Yeah, right. You want to play like defensive big fours. Right. Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Denzel Burke, and Caleb Downs. Let's go. Maybe we should
we should do that. Yeah, we should do that. Yeah.
So this is offensive big fours. We agree Ohio State's number one, and now we go to you because I think I know who you're going to take, and I'm not sure that I would take them. Who's number two?
I'm gonna take Oregon and not feel tremendous about it. Okay. Right? Like I'm gonna take the Oregon group, and my big four for Oregon is Dylan Gabriel at quarterback, obviously. Jordan James at running back, who I have talked about on the show before. I think is going to have a nice year. And then the two receivers, Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart. And you could maybe go Trayshawn Holden there over Evan Stewart. The thing with Evan Stewart is like you still want to believe that he's going to become an absolute freaking monster, right? I don't think he's quite been that. He's not quite lived up to the recruiting pedigree, but you want to think that it's still there. Maybe being in this Oregon offense will bring that out. Hasn't been a bad player, but I don't know. Like, maybe you thought he might be the best receiver in the country, and I don't think he's not been quite that yet. So like this is a really good big four, right? But what is the absolute ceiling of it? I'm not entirely sure. I think you could go another direction here, to your point, but I thought this made the most sense for them to be number two.
Yes or no? Oregon will be worse at quarterback this year than last year.
I think about the same, maybe slightly worse. Only because it's 1 year. It's 1 year in the system versus two, I think, for compared to Bo Nix. So I'll say worse, a little worse.
They'll be worse at running back. Would you rather have Jordan James or 2023 Bucky Irving?
Yeah, I'd probably rather have Bucky Irving.
They'll be worse at receiver. Would you rather have Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart, or would you rather have Tez Johnson and what Troy Franklin was last year?
Last year's.
So I'm not, which is, whoa, great job by Oregon. Way to reload. But I agree with you. I don't think I would have taken them two, perhaps controversially. They're definitely in the top three. And as we talked, like Jordan James was like, this is exactly what you want to do. He played a lot. Didn't he run for 700 yards last year, backing up Bucky Irving like he gave?
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone has doubts about Jordan James. He's going to be good.
PFF, for wherever it's worth, Jordan James was the highest rated running back in the North last year while playing a decent amount. He had 130 carries for 764 yards and 11 touchdowns. It wasn't like he was the highest graded in the country and appeared in 3 games. Like he had a decent workload.
Not only garbage time, like a real true backup running back building up to being a starter. Tez Johnson might have 100 catches this year, right? Like an incredible year last year. They're going to feed him the ball. He's going to be dangerous, catching little slants across crossers in the middle of the field. He's going to blow people up. And then how do you replace Troy Franklin? You go get a 5-star transfer from Texas A&M. Like it's a great plan by Oregon. So all credit to them, but it still could be, I think it's maybe in totality 90% of what it was last year, but not quite as good. But a reminder again that 90% of what they were is still second in the North. So
yeah, and 90% of what they were is still second in the North. And I really think there's probably only one other big four that's in contention, right? You can tell it's your pick, so you can tell me whether or not you think that. But I think there was only one other direction you could go with number two if you didn't want to go with Oregon.
So that direction is the direction that started this conversation. And it's the Iowa State Cyclones with the number 3 big four in the North. And that is Rocco Becht at quarterback. It is Abu Sama at running back and Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins at receiver. And I think I would have taken them second instead of third. Like it's close in your mind. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I went back and forth on it. Yeah, I don't feel great about it now, and I'm mad. I'm mad at myself. I'm mad.
Are you actually mad?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Good. Okay. Like actual mad.
yeah.
This this is a little bit of a sure thing, is it not? The only thing that's maybe not is Abu Sama at running back, because he came on at the end of last year. And so it's not like he's coming off a 1,400-yard rushing season. He had 84 carries for 614 yards last season. But once he got in, like he was destroying people. He ran for
Mhm.
276 yards in the Snow Bowl against Kansas State. He ran for 110 yards against BYU. Like it's a small sample size, but wowza, right?
Yeah,
Wowza on the sample. Sometimes you go to Costco and you think, I haven't really had this before, but the sample is just delicious. That is a delicious Farmageddon sample. What is that? Is that little bacon in it? Little ham? Little cheese in there? I love this Farmageddon sample. I'd like more of that, please. And then
oh,
and then
yeah,
Noel and Higgins are just like two established like number one receivers, right?
yeah. And I don't like Abu Sama. He averaged 6.5 yards after contact per carry last year, which is like, I don't know, a 2 full yards clear of like the next guy who got any kind of significant workload. So like I don't know how much of that is actually realistic in a
Yeah.
world where he's going to be getting
Yeah.
closer to like 200 or 250 carries. So we'll see. Like that was part of it for me. It's like what
Yeah.
is this actually?
Yeah. That's
But
fair.
no, but still good, right? It's not like he's not going to go from what he was last year to suddenly just being like an average player, but like is he going to be in the conversation for best running back in the North or not? Like, I don't know the definitive answer to that question yet. So that was part of the reason why I did take Oregon second, even though you could certainly ask the same questions about Jordan James. But the receivers are legit, and we all love Rocco Beck. So I think if you wanted to take this group too, it would have been sound reasoning to do so.
Our offseason has been defined by drafting Rocco Becht too low in everything we do. So I'm glad he's in
Mhm.
the top three with his guys.
Yeah.
And this is just a reminder, because there are some other teams that I went through, and why it's different from our quarterback conversations, where there are some quarterbacks that we feel really good about. But then when we were going through this exercise, I was like, oh, okay. I don't think they have a top 10 big four. I actually have maybe real questions about like who's going to be the number one receiver, or I don't know, how good that run game going to be, where I don't really have those questions with Iowa State. I think Rocco Becht is a dude, and I think he has dudes around him. And
Yeah.
so go tell your friends. Everybody in Ames, go tell your friends that Iowa State has one of the top three big fours in the North, and you may fight with people over Oregon. And what about that? How good is that for Iowa State? We're fighting with Oregon people over who's better.
Yeah.
So,
It's
but this
great.
is real, and we're not the only people high on Iowa State this season. That starts here.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's my turn now.
All
I'm
right,
gonna
get the vibes back. Feel good about this. Own this pick.
This might be. I think this might be a little curve. I want your reaction. I'm taking Notre Dame. Notre
Let me
Dame,
see.
a big four of Riley Leonard at quarterback, Jeremiah Love at running back, Mitchell Evans at tight end, and Chris Mitchell, the FIU transfer, at receiver.
They were not in my top 10.
Really?
Yeah. They're probably 11.
Well, I should have waited then.
You love Jeremiah Love, right?
I like
And
Jeremiah Love, and I love Mitchell Evans.
there are like how many are there? Four tight ends? Five tight ends in the running to be the best tight end in the North, maybe. I think
I don't want to
I
name them
think
because I'm not giving. I don't want to tip
yeah.
my hand, but yeah, I
Some
mean
of them
three,
will be
three,
revealed in this draft, but
I
he's in the group.
three leap to mind immediately. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
He's in the
Yeah.
group.
There's two others. Yeah. There's two others.
And so that's a real thing. You love Jeremiah Love. Were you sure about Chris Mitchell? Like, part of this for me is, who is Notre Dame's best receiver? Are you or like, was there any discussion? It's like, I don't know, Jaden Greathouse or somebody.
Jaden Thomas. Yeah.
They had a bunch of guys leave. They brought some guys in. There are some guys who have stayed. This has sort of been part of it with Notre Dame, and Riley Leonard is high on our lists. And again, it's one of these things. Again, Audric Estime was great at running back last year, but they had sort of like a 3 or 4 headed monster at time in that backfield. Jeremiah Love was certainly part of that. He certainly, again, there are fewer questions about Jeremiah Love than there are about Abu Sama, just in terms of workload and that kind of thing. But is Notre Dame going to be better or worse at running back without Audric Estime? I don't know. I would maybe say a little bit worse, because I think like Estime was pretty darn awesome last year. And I think there's enough questions. They're worse. And then you're just how are you unsure about Notre Dame's receivers? Or are you like, no, they're going to be better there? Like, that's because they could make a leap there, right?
I'm a little unsure about the returning guys in the program, just because they haven't developed, in my opinion, they haven't developed all that well at the receiver position. But Chris Mitchell hasn't been a part of that. Chris Mitchell is like kind of coming in fresh from FIU, where he was productive in a way that I think is interesting. I was looking to see, and I realize it's probably, you probably shouldn't do this because Chris Mitchell was not playing the same competition week in and week out at FIU that he would have been playing at Notre Dame. But like, if you took his statistical production and like put it in the North, and like specifically yards after the catch kind of stuff, he's like a top 5 or 6 receiver in the North last year. So like, I tried to extrapolate that a little bit. I just think he had some explosiveness to this offense that it's needing at the receiver position. So like, I kind of think he's going to be their leading receiver, which is why I put him here. And then I think Mitchell Evans has the opportunity to be the best tight end in the country. Like, I think that person will probably come from the North. But who, I'm not entirely sure, but certainly Mitchell Evans is in the conversation.
Could be him.
Yeah.
Okay. I think maybe having them outside the top 10 is crazy, but I think based on certainty, maybe this is a little high.
I'm going upside. Yeah. I'm going. Yeah. I'm probably, because I think there's like certainty, and then there's projecting a ceiling. I think there are programs that you could project more certainty for right now, but if I'm projecting ceilings, I think Notre Dame's is considerably higher than a lot of the other teams we're going to talk about.
Okay. Let me drop a team that I had 4th on my list, and I think maybe ceiling and certainty, you can make a compelling argument for them to be ahead of Notre Dame. There's one question there. I'll take Colorado.
Okay.
And I will take them with Shedeur Sanders at quarterback, with Ohio State transfer Dallin Hayden at running back, and then they have 4 receivers they like. But of course, I'm going to take Travis Hunter, and then I'll take Jimmy Horn as the other receiver there. So I feel like you know what you're getting from Sanders, Hunter, and Horn. And the whole discussion last year was offensive line. And then if Dallin Hayden can be a real number 1 back, didn't they had a guy, they flipped the guy out of the portal, then he flipped away again, right? Amos from Miami of Ohio, like, he's not going there.
He's going to Ole Miss, yeah.
He's a tri-flip. Is he a Mississippi State to Colorado to Ole Miss portal tri-flip?
I think that is correct.
Yeah. Very popular sorority, tri-flip, in the portal. So I would take Shedeur Sanders over Riley Leonard. I would take Travis Hunter over Mitchell Evans, probably. I probably would take Jimmy Horn over Chris Mitchell. And then I'd take Jeremiah Love over Dallin Hayden, but if Hayden can be solid. So I'm not trying to run down your Notre Dame pick, but I think this was a pretty good this was a pretty solid number 4 for me. And if you love Travis Hunter, if you think Travis Hunter is going to win the Heisman, if you think Travis Hunter is like a first-round NFL talent, and he can show that consistently offensively, even if he's a defense-first player, then I think Colorado starts shooting up your board. Maybe you want to make an argument of Colorado versus Iowa State, but I'll take the Buffs and feel pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. They were next on my list. I probably would have had maybe Xavier Weaver instead of Jimmy Horn. I don't. You can kind of do whatever you want, I guess, with their receivers. Xavier Weaver led them in targets and receptions and yards last year. Jimmy Horn led them in receiving touchdowns last year. whatever, pick one. It's fine. My part of my hesitancy was like, how much does Travis Hunter like actually play receiver this year? Like, because I do think they need to get away from playing him every single snap of every game. And if they are going to lean one way, I think it should be defense with him. So like, not to say that he shouldn't play receiver at all, but maybe play it a little less than he did last year. And hopefully you have built up your room well enough that he doesn't have to play a receiver like he's a number one receiver and a number one quarterback. And Dallin Hayden now is like running back one. I liked him the entire time he was at Ohio State. I wish he would have played more at Ohio State. I think there's sound reason to believe that he will be good, but it's still a little bit of an unknown, right? Like, what is Dallin Hayden as in every game, every down back, right? So there was a little bit of pause there for me too. I think there is probably more certainty with this group, to your point, but I think the ceiling of what Notre Dame could be is higher, which is why I took Notre Dame ahead of them. Yeah.
All right, so that's our top 5. It's Ohio State 1, it's Oregon 2, Iowa State 3, Notre Dame 4, Buffalo 5. So we will take a quick break and we'll get to pick number 6 after this on Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis back on Kings of the North. Always appreciate your comments here on YouTube. If you want to drop a thumb, if you want to drop something in the comments and tell us what you think about the show. We also do note on occasion what people drop for reviews on Apple Podcasts. We also will take your reviews then. So I just wanted to grab 2 real quick, Bill, which shows a little bit, I think, of the yin and the yang of Kings of the North. We have one from Defense Mike, who says, this show provides great context on the northern half of the sport at a time when college football feels increasingly polarized along those lines. And as a son of the North, I love the passion. 5 stars. Lovely.
Nice. Thank you.
Isn't that nice?
Thank you, Defense Mike.
All right. Then we have Jay Maletti, who says, the premise is horrible, is the headline. I like Doug and Bill, been a fan of them for a while, but the premise of the show is so bad. Trying to listen to them stretch to talk up Syracuse, Boston College, Maryland, or Minnesota is comical. The majority of their audience is Ohio State fans, as am I. As Ohio State fans, we are not part of Northern. This is long. Listening to a college football show that just excludes the South is about the most boring thing I can possibly listen to, even from 2 hosts that I actually like. I would love to listen to them do a college football show to join our Kings of Columbus show. Just a regular college football show without some goofy twist that excludes 70% of the good football in the country, maybe someday.
Probably
we
not.
want to do that show.
Yeah. If we wanted to, we do it.
Yeah. There are a lot
really
of
that simple. We can do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah. There's not like a northern wizard, the Wizard of the North, who's like, you are not allowed to talk about the South. This is what we chose to do. I do think from the responses we've received so far, Bill, I do think more people like the concept than hate the concept. Probably. Because if you hate the concept, you're probably not. Like, we are excluding part of the audience, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Georgia fans should not listen to this show unless you want to be offended or angered, or unless you want to peek behind enemy lines. Then it's great. Like, it's like, you know, send out a spy. They can have one Georgia fan listen and then tell everybody else on the message boards, here's what these guys said. But I think in a world where there's a lot of all that other stuff, if you like college football, it's not hard to find people talking about it. But I don't think anybody else is talking about it like this. So I do like this concept. Who knows what's going to happen? But I like the lane we're in. It's a big, wide, frozen lane filled with freezing rain and sleet and potholes. And that's how we like it.
Yeah, it's a weird lane, admittedly. I'm happy to be the only one in it. And my problem with a lot, and I'm not trying to say like, hey, we're better. Well, maybe I am. But my problem with a lot of more broad-based college football shows is that like you feel an obligation to talk about so much that you end up sort of not being an expert on any of it. So I don't know. I kind of like trimming it down and narrowly focusing on the North. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the South when we tell the South to cram it. I do think once we get to the season, we will wind up talking about the South more. Right.
Sure.
Because we will be telling people like why the South is overrated or why we think, hey, like Northern teams, watch out for Ole Miss. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we will be honest about it, but I do think it's a lens, because the thing is, there are Southern shows, and do people go listen to Southern college football shows and think, well, I don't want to listen to this show. They exclude Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon. Why would I want to listen to this? There's more than one Southern show, right? So for there to be like one Northern show to answer Saturday Down South and, you know, what Marty Smith and Ryan McGee do, and there's like Southern culture that exists in college football. So like, why can't we have that? That's like my thing to all of this is,
Sure,
it's nothing new. We're just applying it to a different part of the country, because why can't we have it too? Why do we have to cede that ground to them? Dog mentality.
Yeah, part of it too is like, if I can, I guess, put myself like from the Ohio State fan perspective, like if there's one team in the North that does show up on those shows, it's Ohio State, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're an Ohio State fan sampling what college football media has to offer, you probably feel like Ohio State is pretty well represented no matter where you go. But like Purdue's not, and Minnesota's not, and BC's not, and we want to provide a space for that too. And you don't have to like it, but that's what we want to do.
Yeah. So we appreciate all your feedback. Like, I like that feedback. I think it's interesting, like, to be aware of that. So we appreciate people stopping in and giving it a shot. So tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell somebody in the South that you know who say, you would hate this show. You really should try it.
You should listen.
Hate listen to listen.
That's true.
Put that on a t-shirt.
It all counts.
Acquired taste. All right. So our top 5 is in. We are now getting to pick number 6 in our draft of Northern Big Fours, which you will find only on Kings of the North. Nobody else is doing this. I guarantee that. Who's pick number 6, Bill?
Pick number 6, for me, will be those West Virginia Mountaineers. Give me the Big Four of quarterback Garrett Green, the running back tandem of CJ Donaldson and Jaheim White, and tight end Cole Taylor. I want the tight end there instead of a receiver.
Okay.
You would not have done this.
I didn't have him in my top 10. Your
Green, top 10 is fascinating to me. Garrett
Green appreciation notwithstanding. I like the running back duo. And again, like we're not going to splice up every single part of college football, but if you did like running back tandems, you probably start with Ohio State again with Quinshon Judkins and Trayvon Henderson, but I think you could do it nationally, and Jaheim White and CJ Donaldson are right in the heart of that conversation. No doubt about it. Mm-hmm. So if you're saying that, and then we really like Garrett Green, like Garrett Green's a dark horse Heisman contender. What am I doing not having them in my top 10? I just am. This was
you didn't have them in your top 10 at all?
Well, I was pulled back a little bit by the double running back thing. Although I put a different double running back team in, I did. I wasn't sure about, I'm not 100% sure who Garrett Green's going to throw the ball to. So that
he's going to throw it to Cole Taylor, and then he's going to run for 1,500 yards.
Yeah. Well, this is probably, then this is probably, well, wait, I want you to have an appreciation for the bottom half of my top 10 also, as well as like, as I'm excluding people that you love. I'm not disputing this. It's probably more disputing myself, as the song goes. How good do you think this running back tandem might be? Because CJ Donaldson was the guy last year. Jaheim White came on at the end, and they're both still there.
Yeah, really good. I think, they're in a conversation. Ohio State's in a conversation. There's probably some programs in the South that I don't care about that are in a conversation. And a team that will be picked, I'm sure, later in this episode. They have the chance to be the best, I think. Or at least most productive, I think, right? Especially with the way that West Virginia wants to play offense. Like if Garrett Green, Jaheim White, and CJ Donaldson combined their run for 4,000 yards, I don't know that would surprise anybody. So like that's on the table for this group. I think it's not. I think you raise an interesting or an important point about who's Garrett Green going to throw the ball to.
Incorrect point.
No. An important point about who will Garrett Green throw the ball to? How dynamic will this passing attack actually be? Will it even be good enough for them to do perhaps what we think they might be able to do this year and win the Big 12 and maybe get to the playoff? Perhaps not, but I still think it's one of the better rushing trios in the country. Like if you go top 3 ball carriers in your offense, and you give me Garrett Green, Jaheim White, and CJ Donaldson, like I'll put that up against most other trios I think around college football.
Okay. Do you think there's, after the top 5, do you think there's or maybe the top 3? Are we talking about maybe 15 big 4s that are in a range? Or are you like, dude, there's a clear top 10 and you blew it on 2 of them?
No, I think I think after Ohio State, Oregon, and I think Iowa State, you can go any number of directions. My list is not quite as long as 15. I'm more like a dozen.
Okay.
But yeah, you can go a couple different ways.
Okay. I might be weird. I might be weird here. Okay. So that was pick 6, right? Pick 6.
That's pick 6. Yeah.
All right. I'll see what you think of this. This is good because we're surprising each other, / angering / losing respect for each other as we do this. Do you know ball? Do you know ball? I'll take Syracuse.
Okay. I thought you would. I thought you would take them in this exercise. I don't know if you take them with this pick or not.
Did you have them in your top 10?
Yeah, that was one of the teams as I was going through that I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting.
Okay, so this is Kyle McCord at quarterback and 1,000-yard rusher LaQuint Allen in the backfield. There's another guy that like flashed in the spring game a little bit. The name escapes me, but like
Yassine Willis,
Willis. They like Yassine Willis. They were like high on him. Aronde Gadsden is the real deal and was hurt last year and stayed and did not participate in the spring. But to me, when we're having the conversation of the 5 best tight ends in the North, there's a top group of 5. Mitchell Evans and Aronde Gadsden are 2 of those 5.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's a couple, again, they're working the portal a little bit. Trevor Pena was hurt last year, but the year before did some stuff. He's also a return guy. He flashed in the spring game a little bit, so he's the 4th guy I put in there. I'm not sure that he'll be their best receiver. I think Aronde Gadsden will be their best pass catcher, and I think LaQuint Allen's like a real guy in the backfield, and Kyle McCord looked awesome in the spring game. And it feels like I don't know. Fran Brown wants to run the ball, and they just let it rip throwing the ball in the spring game, and I got all giddy about it. They have some guy. They have a chance to let it rip if they want to, even though Fran Brown feels like maybe he wants to be physical and run the ball. So I definitely think they should be in the top 10. If you're thinking 7's high, okay, but I think Gadsden has a chance to be borderline All-American quality. There's no questions about Allen, and I think Kyle McCord's going to have a good year.
Yeah, I think Gadsden and Allen like tandem is very good. I have questions about McCord. I don't know what he is. Like, yeah, even if he's exactly what he was at Ohio State, we've said this, right? Like that's pretty good for Syracuse, but not good enough for me to want to pick like this big 4 in like the top half of this list. And I wasn't sure about receiver. Like I didn't know whether or not it should be Pena or like a couple of the Georgia transfers they brought in. I actually, like, as I made my list and made my big 4 for Syracuse, I actually had Willis, so I had 2 running backs.
Okay.
And then I felt kind of weird, like putting a true freshman in there. I know we had Jeremiah Smith in the Ohio State one, but that's like a different conversation. So like it's good, and I think should be in the top 4, or excuse me, in the top 10. But I probably would have waited a couple more picks, but I think what you're saying makes sense, and I think if you're projecting here, there's reason to believe that this could be a pretty good group.
Yeah, our lists are going to be crazy. This is because like the team I'm about to pick next, I was about to say, I think this is who you're going to pick next. And I was like, no, I think he's not going to pick him at all. And he's going to think I'm crazy when I do pick him. So that makes it fun. Number 8, who you taking?
So this is, I'm going to take Utah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to take Utah. And that is a big 4 of quarterback Cam Rising, receiver Dorian Singer, receiver Money Parks, and tight end Brant Keithy, who is allegedly going to play football this year.
Yeah.
Even though he hasn't in quite some time and wasn't a participant in the spring. Like that is the wild card. If you're going to tell me Brant Keithy's not playing, then I don't think I'd pick Utah. But actually, like Money Parks is pretty good. And I think we're both interested / intrigued on what Dorian Singer could be for this offense in terms of an explosive playmaker. And like a healthy Cam Rising is one of the better quarterbacks in the North. So like, and an incredibly experienced player. So like, I guess it comes with an asterisk. Like if Brant Keithy's healthy, I'll take this group. And if he's not, I wouldn't.
Brant Keithy and Trent number 3 on who will be the best Big Ten and best tight end in the North. Is that fair to say?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have 2 more spots left for that discussion. I also had them number 8 on my list where you're picking them here. So I wasn't sure what to do with the last spot after Rising Singer and Keithy of whether to go with Money Parks, whether to go with a running back. So, but I think this is deserved. And the change, you've really been high on Dorian Singer because the whole thing is they throw to the tight ends. They can usually run the ball. Cam Rising's in year 7, but Dorian Singer after is it Arizona or Arizona State where he started?
Arizona, then USC,
and then USC.
Yeah,
could bring them a facet of the offense that they typically don't have, and that could elevate them. So that's a big part of this Big Four. So I think it's a good pick. And good. We're agreeing. It's a nice, wonderful agreement. Okay. Here is my flag, nay, sword in the ground.
Can I guess?
And go guess. Guess.
Is it Boston College?
It's not.
Okay.
Even though I saw those guys with my own eyeballs before my eyeballs exploded.
You seem to really like the receivers they had there. So I thought you might swing on them. Yeah.
I'm riding in on a horse in full armor, and I'm going to plant my sword in the ground.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
A fan Cal E Ack man is. I'm taking Rutgers.
Okay.
Here's why. Ethan Kalakmanis at quarterback, admittedly, I'm not sure. Kyle Monangai, running back, is one of the 4 best running backs in the North. Like, what are we talking about here? This guy's
he's
stud.
He's a dude. He's a dude. Yeah.
Nassim Brantley, the entire conversation around the Rutgers spring game that we had on the show was that guy looks like a number 1 receiver. Wow. It worked out that the NCAA did not let him play last year. And it's a good thing for Rutgers because that he looks like he is on track for a tremendous year. So, like, I love Monangai. We love Monangai. The world loves Monangai. I'm super excited about Brantley's potential. Christian Dremel had 468 yards last year, was their leading receiver a year ago. He's back. And then Kaliak Manis, I get it. Okay. He's been a starting quarterback in the Big Ten before. So this is like the certainty of Monangai. And I am not sure that Nassim Brantley won't be in our conversations for like first or second team all North this season. So Monangai's certainty, Brantley's potential, and the fact that the other guy has done it too, Dremel's done it, allowed me to elevate this group, even though the quarterback is certainly not top 10. And you think it's crazy? You didn't think about Kyle Monangai? No? Come on.
I thought about Kyle Monangai. I just didn't think about any of his teammates. So I quickly moved on. It's like,
you're shocked by this. You're shocked. You're shocked?
I'm pretty surprised. I'm pretty surprised.
Let me
Rutgers has gone. There are some teams that
11-1
have not been picked yet.
So I'm picking them. This is pick number 9 in our draft, right?
Yeah,
there's only one more pick. Let me tell you this. They were 6th on my list. Number 6 on my list.
Wow.
Take that, Notre Dame.
I can't believe I could have gotten Notre Dame with the 10th pick.
Oh. So you completely agree on Monangai, of course. You're intrigued by Brantley?
Very much so.
But you don't think the quarterback play will be very good? Like, is that the main thing here?
I do not think Ethan Kaliakmanis is that good. No, I don't. Okay. I'm not impressed with him in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. I'm going to send this straight to Greg Schiano. Greg, obviously, top 20 defense and the 6th best Big Four in the North. 10 wins or 11 wins for the Scarlet Knights this year?
Yeah, well, it'll be good to tell them at Big Ten Media Days. You can tell them you took their Big Four ahead of the defending national champions.
That was like, who was the guy? Who was the defensive player that was like the preseason Cleveland.com like defensive play last year? like at Cleveland.com, we did like all the preseason Big Ten awards, and I can't remember, but it was like some like stoic linebacker. I was like, "Hey, you were voted the preseason defensive player." He's like, "Who are you? I don't. Why does that matter to me?" Greg, number 6, Big 4. What do you think, brother? Can you?
What?
I'm just trying to get a sandwich. Please stop. All right. So what we're gonna have to get into some of our honorable mention here because there's a couple teams I want to talk about because we disagree so much. Who are you taking with the last pick though? Number 10.
I don't like, so I'm like at a position where I have like 5 teams left on my list, I think, and only one.
Because I've taken everyone that was not on your board
because you took Rutgers. I'm gonna take Penn State, I guess. Yeah, I'll take Penn State. My big 4 for Penn State, I did not include a receiver. My big 4 was Drew Aller, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, and Tyler Warren, their tight end, who I think is another entrant into the conversation of who's the best tight end in the North. Maybe a receiver should be here. Like maybe Trey Wallace should be here. Perhaps Julian Fleming. I like this running back duo, despite Nick Singleton probably not being quite as good last year as people thought he was going to be. I still think Katron Allen is very good and was good last year. So they have a chance to be good. Like I'm excited about what Andy Koltonicki might do with like a running back tandem like that. Like I think with 2 quarterbacks and 2 running backs, there's a chance for him to get real weird with it, which I'm very excited about.
You could have gone there too. You could have gone Bo Perbula instead of Tyler Warren and be like 2 running backs.
That's true.
Let's go.
I could have. But Penn State like has the one, not the one thing, but maybe the one thing on offense they've done pretty consistently. It's like do a nice job with tight ends. So I think Tyler Warren's going to have a good year for Penn State this year, like stepping up now to be the tight end one now that Theo Johnson's gone. So like this to me is like a solid big 4. It's like I don't love Drew Aller. Like I need to see more from him. I think to like really wrap my arms around the idea of him being a big time college quarterback and living up to the 5-star billing, but compared to what else was available, I think this was probably the obvious pick.
I also had them slotted right behind Rutgers because, as everyone always says, Penn State is no Rutgers. So they were 7th on my list with this same group. So I think this is right. I think this deserves to be top 10. Great running back combo. And I do think Nick Singleton, we've seen it, certainly at Ohio State. I think he might have had a get in his own head sophomore year and might be geared up for a blow the doors off junior year. Which I think it can happen in a running back tandem. I think it can happen to anybody who has a really good freshman year. And all of a sudden you've got some experience and you think, okay, watch out. And then it's like, oh, wait, no. And you're trying to hit home runs and all that like that. And he's in both those situations. Mm-hmm. I mean, just like it's exactly what happened to J.K. Dobbins at Ohio State. Played as a true freshman, wound up in a 2-headed monster running back situation and was not good as a sophomore. And then J.K. Dobbins ran for 2,000 yards as a junior. So I'm not saying Nick Singleton's going to do that, but I think Nick Singleton could be a problem. I was not including Tyler Warren in my 5 Northern tight ends, but I think we can expand it to 6. So we've listed 4 so far, right? Mm-hmm. Tyler Warren at Penn State, Brant Keithy at Utah, Rhonda Gadsden at Syracuse, and Mitchell Evans at Notre Dame. So I think there are 2 more now that would fit this bill. One is obvious, Colston Loveland at Michigan, who might be the best.
Yep.
And then I also think Luke Lachey at Iowa, coming back from an injury, fits that bill. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I if we're going to expand it, I would maybe throw out Jack Velling at Michigan State, coming over from Oregon State, like I think has an opportunity as well. So there's some pretty good tight ends. I'm trying to think of the guys that were part of my big 4s. Because did you go through this exercise and basically do it for every team in the North? That's how you figured this out? I started doing that, and then I got to a certain point. It's like I don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah. So but Jack Velling was in trying to figure out what Michigan State's going to be. He was definitely one of their big 4. So I think you could expand to Velling. He's like the best. Other than Aiden Childs, he's the best thing that Jonathan Smith brought with him from Oregon State. Mm-hmm. So in the end, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 of my top 10 got picked. How many of your top 10 got picked in this exercise?
Let me count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9.
Okay. So the only one that screwed it up was that I took Rutgers, who you did not have in the top 10.
Did not have in my document.
In your document, you were like, Kamananga is good. That's all I know about Rutgers. I don't need to research this anymore. I did not have West Virginia or Notre Dame. The two other teams that I had in my top 10, and I'm like really rethinking one of these now. I got a little hot. Oh, because there's another tight end I got excited about. I got too excited about. But the one that I think is legit is Iowa. And I do think LaShawn Williams at running back, Caleb Brown at receiver, Luke Lachey at tight end. And then if Cade McNamara is healthy, I thought that's a reasonable conversation because I think there's certainty with LaShawn Williams. I think there's certainty with Luke Lachey. I think there's upside with Caleb Brown, who once upon a time transferred from Ohio State. And Cade McNamara has been around the block. And I think there's a little bit of certainty with him as long as he's healthy. So I felt okay about putting them in the top 10. And then I don't know why I got hot on Pitt. I just got really excited about Gavin Bartholomew. And,
I did not have Pitt.
And I got really excited about Desmond Reed. And I got a little hot. I should not have had Pitt in the top 10 and not Notre Dame. That's on me. Gavin Bartholomew looked.
That's on me. Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah, Bartholomew, add him to the tight end list. He looked really good in the spring game. So
he was awesome. Was it 2 years ago? Really good.
Yeah. So those are my other ones. Who was your other team in the top 10 that didn't get picked?
I would have picked Nebraska, I think. Okay. Dylan Raiola, Isaiah Nair, Jamal Banks, the transfer from Wake Forest, and then Thomas Fedoni, the tight end. I think is pretty interesting. And then I had the others that I had listed that I wouldn't have gotten to pick, but I just thought were kind of interesting. Were like Boston College, I think is legitimately interesting. Like the questions about Thomas Castellanos are real, right? But so you go with him at quarterback, Ty Robichaux at running back, Lewis Bond at receiver, and Jaron Bradley at receiver, the guy who kind of caught your attention when you were out there. Michigan State, I thought wasn't awful with Aiden Childs, Nate Carter at running back, Montori Foster at receiver, and Jack Velling, who we've talked about at tight end. And then I had Michigan down. I don't think I would have ever picked them, but I just wanted to make sure I had a big four for Michigan written down in case we wanted to talk about them. So that for me was Alex Orji at quarterback, Donovan Edwards at running back, Colston Loveland at tight end, and Samaj Morgan at receiver.
So Colston Loveland has a chance to be the best tight end in the country. I think Donovan Edwards is a dark horse Heisman candidate if Michigan does its thing again. I'd love Donovan Edwards. So that's 2 for 4. Awesome. But the uncertainty at quarterback, and you just don't know at receiver. It's like Tyler Morris, Samaj Morgan, Freddie Moore, like they'll probably be okay, but nobody rose up. So like those two held them back, where Edwards and Loveland, you're like, okay, where am I putting these guys in the top 5? Because the explosive potential, if Donovan Edwards is healthy and is the number 1 guy, he could have 2,000 yards from scrimmage. I mean, I think he's great. I think he could be better than Blake Corum. So, but the offensive line is not going to be as good, but that's not really the exercise to do when we're talking about individual talent, and Loveland's a dude. So I don't, but I also think not having Michigan in the top 10, it's also, and that's not how Michigan wins. They don't win with skill. Right. They win with offensive line and defense. So like we're talking about sort of like the worst part of Michigan and saying they're not top 10, but actually they have a couple guys who are really good.
Yeah, my hold up with Michigan number 1 was quarterback, but like I'm a little uncertain on Donovan Edwards still. Right? Like I think him being the no doubt about it number 1 running back now is more likely to unlock all of the potential we think he's had all along than it is to just like kind of be what it's been the last couple of years. But I have found his overall body of work a bit disappointing so far. Like he had a couple long runs against Ohio State. He had a really long run in the national. It was a national championship, right? Like he went off in the first half of the national championship. Is that right? This past season. But like, and you like, we've just known that's always in there, and like for whatever reason, it doesn't come out enough. So I think it probably will. I think if you are banking on that happening, you will be on the right side of history, I think. But that it hasn't to this point gave me just like the slightest bit of hesitancy on him.
I might chalk last year up for him, which was year 3, not year 2, but also in his own head season.
Yeah,
with
definitely.
with
Yeah.
maybe, in his mind, maybe at the end of 2022, he thinks Blake Corum's gone. I'm going to be the
Mhm.
guy. Blake Corum stays, which is a great thing for the program. Obviously, it helped them win the national championship. But for his personal growth and opportunity, it's not what he had in mind. And now he's thinking he saved him in the Ohio State game in
Yeah.
2022. And he's like, here we go. It's my time now. And then it's not. So I do think I think there's multiple guys in the North that have a chance for breakout seasons because they sort of kept themselves from being everything they can be a year ago. So
Mhm.
in the end, our final draft of the best Big Fours, we debated whether calling it Big Four or Top Four. We think Big Four is right? Big Four. Hey,
Yeah,
did you
I
go to
like
the Big
I
Four?
like Big
Yeah,
4. Yeah.
yeah, Big Four. So Ohio State number 1, without a doubt. Oregon 2, Iowa State 3. There's maybe a bit of a debate there. Bill out of nowhere picks Notre Dame 4. No idea what he was thinking. Really thought I should have gone to Rutgers. Number 5 is Colorado. Number 6, West Virginia. Number 7, Syracuse. Number 8, Utah. Rutgers somehow slides to 9, and Penn State at 10. The North is not built on skill. If we
Mhm.
did this exercise and included everybody, it's not the way that you would want to talk about Northern football and bang your fist on the table and say, look at what we have. But I still think there's some pretty good groups.
I think that's right. I think if you were if you could get past the fact that maybe the number 3 team in the North is more like number, I don't know, 9 nationally or whatever, and talk about the individual groups themselves, I think people who don't pay as close of attention to it as we do would be surprised at some of the talent that's been accumulated in some
Yeah.
of these programs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did think we hit this window too of there's some excellent teams that didn't make the top 10. There's some teams that aren't as good that are in the top 10 when it comes to this. So I think it was a worthwhile exercise. It certainly came out of this is just all how we watched the spring games, what we thought of things, how people are talking about their teams. But, I'm very curious to watch the Boston College skill guys. Wisconsin got a receiver transfer from Boston College that I think was Boston College is 7th best receiver or something, who might have a chance to help Wisconsin this year.
Mhm.
Right. So actually, I thought about Wisconsin too, with Tyler Van Dyke and Ches Malusi and Will Pauling back and Bryson Green. They were kind of an interesting group that maybe is
Yeah.
better than people think. So, and in the portal world, this is where there is a lot of portal action here. You can't find offensive tackles in the portal. You can't find defensive tackles, but there is a receiver carousel where there are guys just flying off. They didn't strap themselves on the horse. They're leaning out too far. They're falling off the carousel and people are scooping them up. So that's an interesting part of this too, of what? Wisconsin's taking Boston College receivers, but this is kind of how this works. That, Notre Dame's best receiver might be the Florida International guys. What are we talking about? But that's the world when it comes to that position, right?
Yeah, there's never a shortage of I think skill in general, right? I think if you're quarterback needy and you're running back needy, you're gonna find what you're looking for. I think in the transfer portal more often than not. I believe there's probably I haven't looked, but there's probably some pretty good players that are still out there that haven't found the home yet because teams don't have roster spots for them. There just does always seem to be an abundance of that particular position, and it's good to see programs in the North finding a couple of guys to help bolster their big 4s or their skill groups.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Kings of the North. We love all your feedback on YouTube, on podcast reviews, wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to drop a rating, we certainly appreciate that. As always, thanks to our producer, Mike Yorostowski, for making us look good and sound good. More interesting stuff ahead. But as always, just grateful that you guys are here and along for the ride. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was Kings of the North.